أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يوصينا معه العدون ولا يودي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بهد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالسخر ما يدعن عرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإلى عاد أخاهم هودا قال يا قوم اعبدوا الله ما لكم من إله غيره أفلا تتقون صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in the Quran is sadly forgotten by a lot of people or is confused with another prophet, and he is Prophet Hud alayhi salam. If we were to ask a lot of people about Prophet Hud, they would either say they don't know much about him, or they would confuse him with another prophet and say and ask, wasn't he the prophet that was swallowed up by the whale? So tonight, let's look at the life of Prophet Hud alayhi salam and through the eyes of the Quran and through the eyes of the Hadith, and see what happened to the people of Ad, what happened in the time of Prophet Hud alayhi salam, and see what lessons we can derive from that lifetime, their lifetime, and apply it to our own. So to begin with, Hud alayhi salam, he was sent to the people of Ad. Ad, the people of Ad was a tribe. It ended up becoming a tribe, but Ad, who was Ad? Ad was the son of Uz, who was the son of Aram, who was the son of Shem. Shem was the son of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. And so Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, he is the great-great-grandfather of Ad. And the people of Ad, they're believed to be the first inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula. After Ad's death, his two sons, Shadid and Shaddad, they reigned in succession over the people of Ad. And then Ad, it became a collective term to all of those who could trace their lineage back to Ad. We had said yesterday that Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, he had some sons that lived after the flood, and of one of those sons he had given the Ism Azam, and he had given the relics of prophethood to one of his sons whose name was Shem. And Ad was a descendant of Shem, and these people of Ad, they were descendants. So they ended up becoming descendants of Shem, or they ended up becoming descendants of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam. And there's a tradition from Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam that mentions that after Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, after he disembarked from the ark, Nuh alayhi salam, he lived for 500 years. And when he had lived his destined age, Jibreel alayhi salam, he came to him and he says to him, Ya Nuh, your prophethood is now ending, your prophethood is now over. So pass on the greatest name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the heritage of knowledge and the relics of prophethood to your son Shem. Accordingly, Nuh alayhi salam, he handed over the greatest name and the prophetic relics and to his son. And narrations state that after the flood, Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, he still had at least 3 believing sons with him, Shem, Ham, and Yafith. And Shem, he was the one who Nuh alayhi salam, he gave these relics to. And not only did he give these relics to him, but Nuh gave the glad tidings of Hazrat Hud alayhi salam to his successors, and he ordered all of them. He ordered the people to obey Hazrat Hud alayhi salam when he appears. And he urged everyone to see the will at least once every year. The will that he had written, the will that Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam he had written, he had urged all the people to look at that once a year, and that day would be a festive day for them. Just like Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, he had also told all of his children to look at that, and he had given them the glad tidings of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam to come. And just like that, Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam gave glad tidings to his children and the people that lived at that time. About who? He gave them the glad tidings of the coming of Hazrat Hud alayhi salam. And what happened after some time passed, after Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, he passed away, some time passed, and the oppression and deviation found its roots in the children of Ham. The people of Ad, they say that the people of Ad, they were extremely powerful and wealthy, and they built countless buildings and monuments to show their power. However, the people of Ad, their wealth ultimately proved to be their failure. As they became arrogant and abandoned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and began to adopt idols for worship. Brothers and sisters, subhanAllah, you can find a commonality between the people of Ad and the people of today. What is that commonality? If wealth and power is not checked, it corrupts people. Just look at today and research into how a lot of these billionaires have become so wealthy, and you will find very few who did it by following the rules. Just look, for example, people that have wealth and power at the same time. Look at a lot of the kings in the Islamic world. Look at a lot of the princes in the Islamic world. Look how they act, the wealth they have, and look at how they are treating the people that they are ruling over. The power they have, and look at how they're treating the people that they're ruling over. If this wanting to accumulate wealth is not kept in check, it leads to love of this world. And when one's eyes are on only and only this world, then they lose sight of the real reality, or the everlasting reality that is to come. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he said in regarding this, he says رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا. He says that the love of this world is the source of all transgressions, or the source of all transgressions is the love of this world. And Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi, he writes in his book 40 Hadiths, the greater the attachment to the world, the thicker the veils between man and the realms of sublimity, and denser the curtain between the heart of the human being and its creator. When he finishes, he says, it occurs in some hadiths that there are 70,000 veils of light and darkness between God and His creatures, and the veils of darkness may be no other than the attachment of the heart to this world. And the deeper they are, the greater the number of veils, and the greater the difficulty in removing those veils. Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi, he says that, look, these veils of darkness, these veils that are on the people's eyes, that are preventing them from knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? The reason for the creation of the humans and jinns is what? مَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. And according to narrations that we have from the Aimah alayhi salam, لِيَعْبُدُونَ means لِيَعْرِفُونَ, meaning that except that He created man and jinn, except that they know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi, he takes this and he says, look, these veils that are upon our eyes, they're actually preventing us from knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what are these veils? He says that these veils, they're nothing more than the attachment that this human being has to this world. And what happens, the more attached this human being is to the world, the more veils there are, and the harder it is to remove those veils. What does that mean? Just look, whatever someone is attached to, if they're attached to a book, if they're attached to money, if they're attached to a friend, it's very difficult for them to let go of that. Now, if someone is attached to just the world, meaning that they do everything just for the sake of the world, not looking at their afterlife, not looking at anything else, they do everything just for the sake of the world, this is what Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi says, it becomes harder for them to detach themselves from the world. When in reality, this world is just a transient phase where we're just here for test and trial, and then the next world to come is that everlasting world that we're supposed to live in forever. And Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he himself, he says that the greater one's involvement with the world, the greater shall be his regret at the time of parting from it. And the Holy Prophet himself, he says that the dirham and the dinar have destroyed many a people before you, and they will destroy you too. He's talking about his ummah. And when we look at, for example, the people of Ad, this was the same thing. But what is the Imam alayhi salam saying? What is the Holy Prophet saying? The Imam, when he says the greater one's involvement with the world, the greater shall be his regret at the time of parting from it. Meaning, the more a person was attached to the world, the harder it is for him to leave it. When death is on this person's doorstep, he doesn't want to go. Why? Because he feels like this world is it. He's made, or this person has made this world into their own heaven. And he's forgotten, in the process of making this world into his own heaven, he's forgotten that there's another world to come. And that world, whether you're in true heaven, will depend on the actions that you did in this world. And what does this person do in the process of making or turning this world into his own personal heaven? This person, they exceed the bounds set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The rules, the regulations, the way to live your life, they exceed those bounds and they become extravagant. You look at the people with power, you look at the people with wealth, and you see how much they've exceeded those bounds. For example, the people of power. Well, we hear every day about how people in authority in just about every field abuse their power to get what they want. They abuse their power. Whether it be police, or whatever country. It doesn't mean because you live in an Islamic country the police are also going to follow the rules of Islam. No. Abuse of authority, whether it be police, whether it be some politician, whether it be ulama. People in authority, they abuse that power. When these tools of wealth and authority or wealth and power are in the hands of those that actually want to benefit mankind as a whole and not just themselves, that's when this world will have true equality. As long as these tools are in the hands of self-serving individuals who don't care about anyone else but themselves, this world will not change. That individual who will change this world with these two tools, we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send them as soon as possible so he could rule with justice and equality, just as it has been ruled with injustice and inequality. We all pray that, Ya Allah, it's been long enough now. It's been long enough now that this world has been ruled by unjust people. This world has been ruled by unworthy people. Send that individual of yours who will rule this world with justice, who will treat people with equality, who will show what true equality is. Like I said, as long as people just want to serve themselves, true equality will not appear in the world. As long as people want to serve themselves, true justice will not appear in the world. The only person or the only people who are capable of ruling with equality, ruling with justice, are those people that don't serve themselves but they serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they serve mankind. They have nothing that they want for themselves. When the Holy Prophet, all of these prophets, when they preached, what did they say to the people? They told them that we don't want anything from you. We don't want any gold, we don't want any silver, we don't want anything from you. What we will get in return is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the same way Amir al-Mu'mineen would rule. Before Amir al-Mu'mineen, was there justice? Was there equality? No. When Amir al-Mu'mineen ruled, he tried his best for that justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take hold. He tried his best for that equality that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to take hold. But they didn't let him. Why? Because they were so used to that injustice. The people were so used to that inequality. But to get back to Hazrat Hud alayhi salam, Hazrat Hud's Prophet Hud alayhi salam, he was the most noble and respected amongst those people that lived at that time, and he was very prosperous, and to a great extent he resembled Adam alayhi salam. Hud remained amongst his people for a long time, and he used to invite the people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and prohibit them from ascribing partners to him and from oppressing the people. He also warned them of divine punishment, but the people did not forego sinfulness, and they did not let go of the legitimate ways that they had. After Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, after there was one purge, what happened? Time passed. People, they went back, or they reverted back into doing what they were doing before Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, meaning they started worshipping idols again. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, there's a narration from him where he says that when Hazrat Hud alayhi salam, he announced his prophethood, the descendants of Shem, they believed him because they had prior knowledge of his special characteristics. All of these prophets, when they would proclaim themselves, there would always be a group of people that believed in him. Why? Because they knew about what was said about this particular prophet. They knew that the books had foretold, or they knew that the Suhuf had foretold that this particular prophet would come. And when he comes, we want you to believe. The same applies to the Holy Prophet himself. The previous books had already foretold the coming of the Holy Prophet. And what did the people do? There were people that rejected, and there were people that believed because they themselves, they were waiting for that particular prophet. In our case, the Holy Prophet. But when Hud alayhi salam, he started preaching and inviting them to the worship of the one and true God, and when he told them to repent for their past sins and ask for mercy and forgiveness, what did the people of Ad do? The Ad people, they began to revile him, and violently they began to attack him. Ali ibn Ibrahim Qummi, he has a narration, he says that Ad was a tribe of people of Hud. They had a long lifespans and towering buildings, but they were idol worshippers. Hud alayhi salam, he was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to invite them towards Islam. Islam in the sense that all of the prophets, they invited the people toward, all of the prophets, they brought Islam. But Islam throughout history has always had a different face to it, meaning that it always had different laws to it. It continues to change, but the core of it, the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the belief in prophethood, the belief in Qiyamah, all of that has always been the same. There's no difference in what Hazrat Adam taught. There's no difference in what Hazrat Nuh taught. There's no difference in what Hazrat Isa alayhi salam taught. There's no difference between that in any of the prophets. But when it comes to the way that religion is shown, for example, when it comes to the fiqh of that religion, when it comes to the laws of the religion, then those laws were different for each time. The laws in the time of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, they were different than the laws in the time of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. The laws in the time of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, they were different than the laws of the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam. The same way the laws of the time of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, they were different from the laws of the time of the Holy Prophet. They brought different laws, but at its core, Islam was still Islam. So when Hud alayhi salam was inviting them to Islam, he told them, and he tried to refrain them from worshipping idols, but the people, they refused to accept this, and instead they began to torture Hud alayhi salam in various ways. Some narrations, they state that they became angry and leapt at his neck and they strangled him, and he was on the verge of death when they finally released him. And Hud alayhi salam, he fell unconscious for one full night, and he fell unconscious for a whole day. And when he continuously preached and they still didn't listen, that's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevented rain for several years, causing a terrible famine. Hud himself, what was he? What was his occupation? The narration state that Hazrat Hud alayhi salam, he was practicing agriculture and he irrigated fields. Basically, he was a farmer. And one day, when this famine, in the time of this famine, one day a group of people, they came and they knocked on the door of Hazrat Hud alayhi salam, and his wife, she opened the door. And she asks them who they are, and they tell her that we have come from a certain city, or we have come from a certain town, and that town is inflicted with drought. We have come to request Prophet Hud to pray for rain. This drought, this city also had drought, so they had come to request Prophet Hud for rain. And what does this lady say? The woman, she looked at them and she says that if the prayers of Hud were effective for this purpose, he himself would have prayed. Meaning that if the prayers of Hazrat Hud were effective, then his crops would not be dying. Because she goes on to say that for his own crops have withered away due to the lack of rain. So what did the people do? They just asked her, can you tell us where he is? And the people, when they asked her his whereabouts, she told them where he is. And what do? The people come to Hazrat Hud and they tell him, O Prophet of Allah, our towns have dried up, there is no rain. Please pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send rain for us and bestow us with excess of bounties. Hud alayhi salam, he listened to them and he prepared for prayers. After the prayers, he told the people to return, and that Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will send rains to their town. The people said, before they left, they said, O Prophet of Allah, Ya Nabiullah, we saw something strange when we were coming here. And Hazrat Hud, he looks at them and he says, what was it? And they told him of the woman that had answered the door when they went to his house, and about what she said. And Hazrat Hud, what does he reply? Hazrat Hud alayhi salam, he says that woman, she's my wife, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant her a long life. When the people asked him why he prayed, when she detests him like that, when she doesn't believe him to be a prophet, or she speaks to him in that manner, or she speaks about him in that manner, what does Hazrat Hud alayhi salam reply? He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not created any believer, but that he has an enemy too. This enemy continues to torture this believer, and my enemy is this woman. I am dominant over my foe. It is better that my enemy is not dominant over me. Just remember, just because they are the wife of a prophet does not mean that they are the most pious of women. It does not mean that they had the most respect for the prophet. It does not mean that they never talked ill about the prophet. Now today, you have some groups of Muslims, they say they're the wives of the prophet. They're the wives of the prophet. Just because they're the wives does not give them, or does not mean that they're immune from error. Does not mean that they're masum. Just merely being a wife. Why? We have stories of the wives of other prophets. For example, the wife of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, one of the wives of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, she herself, she used to revile the prophet. She herself, she used to make fun of the prophet. You come to Hazrat Hud alayhi salam and you have his wife, she treated him the same way. You come to the lives of other prophets, you'll see the same thing. Just because they're the wives of a prophet does not mean that they're at the epitome of good characters and good morals. It doesn't mean that they're at the heights of good character and good morals. So why do the Muslims say that, the wives of the Holy Prophet, they're all good? No. You look at the Quran, you read the Quran, there were some of the wives who had caused harm to the Holy Prophet. Inshallah, if we ever get to that, we'll talk about that. But what happened? Hud alayhi salam, he remained amongst the people and continued to invite them towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he restrained them he tried his best to restrain them from worshipping idols. And he used to continuously, this is something that you find amongst all of the prophets, that they used to continuously, not just once or twice, but they used to continuously tell the people to leave idol worship. They used to continuously tell the people to come and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, that He could bestow blessings on them. Yet the people of Hazrat Hud alayhi salam, the people of Ad, they refused. And consequently, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent a chilly and biting wind. And they say that the wind, it continued to blow for 7 to 8 days. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He himself, He describes this wind in Surah Al-Dhariyat, verse number 41 and 42. What does He say? He says, وَفِي عَادٍ إِذْ أَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الرِّيحَ الْأَقِيمِ. He says, and to Ad, and to the people of Ad, when we sent upon them the destructive wind, the devastating wind, the fatal wind. Rih is wind, Aqim, destructive wind, fatal wind, or devastating wind. And then the next verse, what does it say? This wind, what did this wind do? It left nothing from whatever that it came up against, but made it like rot. It turned it into dust. This wind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent, this punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it took the form of this Rih al-Aqim, this wind. And Imam Baqir alayhi salam, he says, there's a narration from him where he says that indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed in the realm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the breeze of mercy and the breeze of wrath. This breeze, this wind of mercy and wind of wrath. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala desires, He transforms the breeze of wrath into the breeze of mercy. However, He never transforms the breeze of mercy into the breeze of wrath, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never wrathful to the people who obey Him. The breeze of mercy, it comes upon whom? The people that obey Him. The breeze of mercy doesn't come upon the people that disobey Him. The breeze of mercy comes upon the people who obey Him. So that's why the Imam, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is never wrathful to the people who obey Him. But what happens? He is enraged. He is enraged when they begin to go astray. Then Imam states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dealt with the people of Yunus alayhi salam in the same very fashion. Inshallah, I said in the beginning that some people, they confuse Hazrat Hud alayhi salam with that prophet that was swallowed up by a whale. And inshallah, when we get to Hazrat Yunus alayhi salam, we'll see what his story is too. But Imam, he says that what had happened to the people of Hazrat Yunus alayhi salam, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had decreed punishment for them. They were about to be seized by divine punishment, but the people accepted belief and they pleaded for mercy, and the punishment was suspended. They were going to be punished, but when they pleaded for mercy, when they accepted truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does He do? He takes back that punishment. If the people of Ad, if they had pleaded for mercy, if the people of Ad, if they had come back to worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would have taken that wind away also. The same thing with the people of Nuh. The same thing. When we look at history, brothers and sisters, when we look at the history of these communities whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished, we see a couple of characteristics that are in common. One major characteristic or trait that is in common between all of these people that punishment was sent upon is that of pride. It is this pride that leads them away from worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is this pride that prevents these people from accepting the truth even when the punishment is descending. Pride. Imam Khomeini rahmatullah alayhi, he writes in his book 40 Hadith that when someone perceives a merit, what is pride? In describing pride, he says when someone perceives a merit in himself and is overcome by a sense of pleasure and vanity and state, that is called ujub. Ujub is self-conceit. When this person, he sees in themselves a merit or a very good quality, and they take pride in, or they just continuously see that in themselves, he says that that is called ujub, or self-conceit. And when he considers others to be lacking in that imagined merit within himself, At that time, what does this person do? He perceives himself to be superior to this other person. And this perception of supremacy over others causes in him a state of vanity, which is pride, which is kibr. Kibr in this sense is an inner state, and when its effects are reflected in his behavior and his speech, it is called takabbur. Kibr is an inner state, but when this inner state shows itself in speech, in behavior, then it is called takabbur. And he goes on to say that there are various causes of kibr, but all of them derive from the delusion which occurs when men imagine themselves to possess some kind of excellence. Some kind of excellence. The people of Ad, what were they so proud of? They were so proud because they were given strength that they could build buildings out of stone. They could build buildings in the side of mountains. They were very proud of that. They were proud of what? They were proud of the wealth that they had. This pride. And it was this pride that prevented them from accepting the teachings of Hazrat Hud alayhi salam. And it was this pride that was eventually their downfall. And you look at the people of Hazrat Nuh alayhi salam, they themselves also, it was pride that was eventually the downfall. It was this pride that was the downfall of Iblis lanatullah alayh. And it was this characteristic, this trait, it slowly came into the children of Adam. It was this pride. It was because of this pride. What was Qabil? Qabil thought that he was the eldest. Because he was the eldest, he should be the successor. And you come to the other prophet, you come to the lives of the other prophets, the people of their time, they had this pride within themselves. But one of the ways to bring down this pride is to think about what we are. What is this human being? This human being is nothing more than a mixture of a sperm and an ovum. That's it. But if you go deeper into the microscopic universe, to the building blocks, such as atoms, then what does this human being have to be proud of? If we go into the microscopic universe, then this human being is made up of the same things that his excretions are made up of. Atoms, if we're talking about atoms, then everything has atoms. Everything that exists has atoms. Everything that we eat after it comes out, whatever comes out also has atoms in it. So what is there to be proud of? One of the ways, Imam Khomeini rahmatullahi alayhi, he himself, he says, one of the ways to get this pride out of someone, or get this pride out of yourself, is to just think about how you've come into existence. That's it. If you just ponder on that, then you realize, you know what, this is all I am. What am I why should I be so proud? What is there for me to be so proud about? When in reality, when that is my reality, when that is exactly what I've come out of or come from. There's a narration from Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, and what did he say? He says, "Inna fi Jahannama lawadiyan lil mutakabbirina yuqalu lahu sakharun." He says that verily there's a valley in hell for the proud called Sakhar. The Imam, he says that in hell, the people that are mutakabbirin, the people that are so proud, they're not in the same place as others. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a specific valley for them. And these mutakabbirin, these people, they will be in that valley. They will be in that valley. And that valley itself is hotter than others. So when it comes to the people of Ad, brothers and sisters, one of the reasons that they were destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the reasons that they were punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was why? Because of this pride that they had. The other communities, they also had pride. But pride, power, pride, strength, pride, wealth, power and wealth. These communities, the people of Ad, two things that they had a lot of was power and wealth. And eventually, and you look at today, these are the two things. If someone has these two things together, and if these two things are not kept in check, then it is these two things that lead them away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they're not kept in check. Inshallah, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep the Imam of our time safe. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make his reappearance as soon as possible, and let us and our families be able to sacrifice our life for him and his cause. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins, to forgive the sins of all the mu'mineen, mu'minat, and to forgive the sins of all the mu'mineen, mu'minat that do not have anyone to pray on their behalf. And before I end, I just want to let you know, please, if anyone would like to sponsor these lectures, please get in contact with Brother Asad Zaidi, and he will let you know how you can sponsor these lectures. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and inshallah, brothers and sisters, I will see you again tomorrow with the story of another prophet and what lessons that we can derive from their lifetime, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.